Good afternoon. Good to see you again here in sunny Pennsylvania. And it is sunny again, which is nice because we get some nice natural light here in the room. Fireplace is going. Don't forget your coffee so that you can enjoy what we're going to go over today. Relaxed environment. Sit back and let's see what the Lord has to say to us today. The conversation I have today with you, I'm going to cover some more business related things, some skills, etc. But I'm also going to cover the foundation of it, where it came from, and how we kind of like ended up where we are here today. And it's a very important transition period that many times is overlooked. So let's begin. And again, I covered this in the first session. I'm going to cover it again here. This is important for the flow of getting into what we're going to talk about today. So in Genesis chapter 1, God created all things in verses 1 to 25, everything except man, however. In verse 26 to 28, he created man. So in verse 26, he declared what he was going to do. Verse 27, he did it. And in verse 28, he commissioned us to fulfill his call. Verse 26, then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, and over the cattle and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." Who's the us? As I said before, us, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. And we also mentioned in John chapter 1, Jesus is identified there as being in the beginning, and everything created was created through him. How about of our image? God, three things here. You can dig deeper. Let's just take with these three. Number one, God is a spirit being, and so are we. We became flesh and blood later, but at the beginning we were created as a spirit being. Number two, we have free will. God has perfect free will, right? But we have free will to make choices. And number three, we are creators. As he created all things, he gave us the ability to be creative with what he created. So our example before was the internet, and you can pick anything. The internet, though it was developed by man, and I'm going to say in the public eye in the end of the 80s, 1980s, all the parts that went into the internet was created at the beginning. So we get to be creative with what he has created, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, etc. All right, verse 26. Verse 27 says, God created man, which means human in this case, in his own image, as he stated. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So male and female together are the embodiment of man in God's eyes. Neither male nor female is complete in the creation. The two together make the full embodiment. In verse 28 now, this is a very important verse because it really is the call in our life. Verse 28 says, God blessed them, and God said to them, which was a command, not force, it was a command, but not force because of free will, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God blessed them. What does that mean? That means he gave us all of our skills, personality, and everything we need to be able to carry out the ultimate call in our life, which comes in seasons. We don't know everything at the beginning. We've been created with everything at the beginning, but it hasn't been developed, that it develops over time. And he said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Here again, it doesn't mean just make babies. It's actually two commands. Be fruitful and multiply. Fruitful means bear fruit. We use the example of an apple tree. The apple tree grows, bears fruit. The next year it grows some more and bears more fruit. So over the years, the tree gets larger and bears more fruit. And that's exactly what we're supposed to do. One of the differences is, though, is that our fruit becomes greater, broader in scope. It's not always apples, right? It begins at one thing and continues on. And multiply. Multiply, yes, it does mean babies. but it also means this. Inside the original word for multiply means become great. As our fruit grows and it matures and it becomes bigger, it becomes greater. It has a greater impact on mankind. We have a relationship with people, right? We have a relationship with people which causes God's commands to be carried out, and it happens through relationships, not dictation. All right, we'll get into that as we go along here. Fill the earth and subdue it. The earth is there for our use. We are to fill it and subdue it, put it to good use correctly. Don't misuse it, but use it right. And rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, etc. Now notice in verses 26 and verses 28, God references rule. We have been given the ability and the desire to rule. We have not been given the desire to be robots. We've been given the desire to rule. As we grow, we rule more and more. We start with ourselves, right? The first person you rule is staring at you in the mirror in the morning. As we develop and our responsibilities increase, the breadth and the reach of that rule within the realm of which we were created expands and is carried out by relationships with people. All right. So everything is covered. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you look at the list, excuse me, the list of what man is ruling, it doesn't include man. Man is not in the list. Man is being charged to rule what's on the earth, but not man. Let's make it the way it is. Our relationships with people are based on relationships. The most successful people in their rules of authority, and we do have, we have people in ruling places, which I'm going to get to later. But the success of it is based truly on relationships. And we'll dig into that here. All right. So let's consider this. One of the things we haven't talked about yet, which is very important, is what are we overcoming from history? And it's time for coffee. Our history says this. Our life on the earth we started in an agrarian society, right? We started as farmers. And one thing about being an agrarian society, farmers were rulers of their domain completely. A business cycle, I'm going to take it simply, but basically a farmer's business cycle ran about a year. He started with, took some money, either borrowed it from the bank or he had some left over from the previous year, or both, used the money to buy seed. With the seed, he planted crops. 3-4 months later, he harvested the crops. He then took the crops, sold them, got the money from the sale, paid back the banker, and with the rest of the money, he lived for the rest of the year. So he lived on one season that was a year long. Now, that doesn't mean he wasn't raising cattle as well at the same time. That's not the point. The point is that in an agrarian society, farmers were responsible for themselves, and they took care of their families, and they had to manage money as well, right? Okay, so what happened over time? Over time, things changed. We had the industrial society showed up, and the agrarian leaders moved from the farm into the factory. There's nothing wrong with this because lots of good things came out of the industrial society. But the business cycle now became weekly or close to weekly, maybe bi-weekly. The point is, people moved into factories. They reported to people. People told them what to do. And they got paid for what they were told to do. And they got paid weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever it happened to be. So the management of money went from paycheck to paycheck. Sounds familiar, right? Paycheck to paycheck. Now, here's an interesting thing that got missed. Business leaders at that time, unintentionally, I'm sure, missed something. Forgot the rule part. They forgot about the fact that man has a desire to rule. So now when these farmers came in from the farm, when they did everything, planned their whole life, came into the industrial society, what happened? They were told what to do. They had no say in what they were doing. And business leaders missed this. And consequently, people became disgruntled. And what was one of the outgrowths of the industrial society? Labor unions. Nothing against labor unions, that's not the point. The point is, man has a desire to rule. Labor unions came as a result of man not having the say they used to have. And there were lots of issues, but let's just keep the umbrella high here. And that's been going on ever since. The most successful leaders, you can write this down, the most successful leaders respect the desire to rule in everything people do. And there are skills that help that happen. So we need to lead and manage businesses, thus people, because people are in all the businesses, recognizing and encouraging the ruler instinct in people. And I'm going to end here on this one, and I'm going to pick this back up in a couple minutes. Thank you.